This is tutorial number 126, and it covers how to use the measure command within SOLIDWORKS. Now, the measure tool is this tool up here, the measure, and the advantage of using this rather than using, say, something on the sketch like the smart dimension to come up with your measurements is that this one will give you much more detail in your measurements, and it's a lot easier to use with if you have different things, like if you're in an assembly, if you have a part, different sketches and everything. So using this tool is the best way to measure everything within it, and you're able to measure something simple like, say, from this point to see how far that line is, or something more like from this point to this point, and it'll show you in more detail than just doing like a smart dimension grab. And it'll also let you measure a single point and where it is in the coordinate system. So to start off, let's click the measure tool and let's measure just this line here. So you'd click this point here and this point here, and you can see that it's a distance of 100 millimeters. Now let's get out of it and we'll do another one. So let's do from this point here to this point here, and you can see that it gives you much more information than just a normal like smart dimension or something else would do. So it's going to show you the distance from point to point, and then it's going to show you in each direction. So the D, the DZ, DY, and DX. So you're able to see in the Z, Y, and X direction how it's changing, how it's moving. So doing this allows you to see much more detail what you're doing, where you're going, and how everything's being affected. Now, you're also able to do surfaces. So let's measure, say, this surface to this surface, and it shows you the distance. So it's not just limited to points. You can do faces, and also show you you're able to do lines. So let's measure that line to that line. And again, it shows you the distance, and then it shows you in the Y and the X. So it shows you pretty much how it made the triangle to get there. So that's your hypotenuse, and then your two sides to make it. So that's the advantage of using the measure tool in here. It shows you in much greater detail not just the distance, but how you get there, like in the Y and the X direction, just so you have a bit more information to go with, and you can make more adjustments to your part, your sketch, and everything like that. And one other key tool with it that I like is when you click on one point, let's say this point here, you'll see that it gives you the box. It says where it is in the coordinate system. So it's X, Y, and Z direction. So that point has a coordinate of whatever it shows right there. Now this is important when some assemblies, with bigger assemblies with companies, I deal a lot with like the automotive industry, and what they do is they don't really use position constraints in their assemblies. Most of the time it's a positioning constraint. So say I'm working on a door panel or something. When I click on a point on the door panel, it's not going to be a small dimension like that. It's going to be X away from the front left tire or something like that. There's an origin with like the whole vehicle, so that when you're in the position, when you're in the assembly, it's actually position constrained. So all the parts, it's hard to kind of visualize, but every part has like a position in the assembly. None of them are really constrained like using the assembly constraints like being coincidence constraints and whatnot. Usually they just use positioning constraint. So using this tool, you're able to see where you are in the position. So even though the coordinate system's here and the part's here, sometimes when I'm working on a part, this is the part here, but really the coordinate system is down here and it begins. So it's a much larger dimension than you get all over. So this tool also lets you see where, in the whole grand scheme of things, where your part really is, if you select just a point. And that concludes our tutorial on how to use the measure tool within SOLIDWORKS.